Welcome to this Tutor to You Sociology topic video on state policy and the family, examining the impact of policy on gender roles. In a previous video in this series, we looked at the different theoretical views of family policy and the policies introduced by different political parties. However, we also need to consider the impacts of social policies on different aspects of family life. This is a common question on the AQA A-Level specification, particularly when tackling the 10-mark outline and explain questions, which rely upon a student being able to apply their knowledge of one area of the specification to another. In this video, we're going to look at how direct and indirect policies have impacted on gender roles in the family. But first we need to define what we mean by direct and indirect policies. A direct policy is one that has an intended effect on a group or issue, in this instance, gender roles in the family. An example of this could be the introduction of shared parental leave for parents of newborn children, which allows both partners to share parental leave between them, rather than having 9 months paid or 12 months in total maternity leave and 2 weeks paternity leave. This allows males to become more involved with their children and allows women to return to work earlier. An indirect policy is one that does not have the intention of changing the gender roles in the family, but does so as a consequence of some other change it promotes. An example of this would be the closure of Sure Start centres, which was part of a package of economic cuts to repay debt following the global financial crisis of the early 2000s. This impacted on gender roles, however, with affordable childcare being removed from the Sure Start provision, making it difficult for women to return to work. Before we look at the policies, it's worth examining ways in which gender roles have changed and then apply the policy as a cause of this. Gender roles have changed in a number of ways. Firstly, the growth of males becoming involved in the care of their children, something which in more traditional families is often seen as being the domain of females. Secondly, the relationships between partners as a result of changes in society. The rise of divorce and the greater conditions placed upon relationships to meet the needs of one's partner, what Beck called the negotiated family, has been shaped by changes in social policies. A third consideration is the availability of childcare, which allows both partners to find paid employment and pursue career progression. And linked into this, the impact of increased career progression, particularly for females, and how policies have promoted this have impacted on the gender roles and relationships within those families. First of all, we'll look at how social policy has shaped parental responsibilities. Feminists would argue that the provision of 9 months paid maternity leave to women, 12 months in total, reinforces social expectations of women to be the primary caregiver in the family. Later introductions of 2-week paternity leave did little to change this expectation, but under the coalition government, parents could share their parental leave between them, which moved away from the female parent being seen as the primary caregiver. Fathers could take additional time off work and share the burden of being a childcare provider while their partner returned to work. This has dual impacts of allowing fathers additional time to bond with their children and allowing women to return to work with minimal damage to their career prospects. This was further reinforced by parents being granted up to 13 weeks unpaid leave to look after their children in the first 5 years of their lives. And this has allowed both partners to share responsibility for looking after their children should they be ill or have medical appointments. One of the biggest impacts on gender roles in the family is the shift of power from males to being more equal. The Divorce Reform Act made it easier and cheaper for couples to divorce, and with 2/3 of divorce petitions being initiated by women, this resulted in changes in the dynamic between males and females in the family. Whilst the ease of divorce meant the family was more insecure, it also led to a negotiation of gender roles between partners so that males were more involved in domestic labour and childcare, although the extent to which this has occurred has been debated by many sociologists. Another impact of this was the changing expectations on women to pursue a career and place themselves on a more equal financial footing with males, and this was promoted indirectly through policies such as the Equality Act, Equal Pay Act, and Sexual Discrimination at Work Act. One area where gender roles have changed is the role of parenting. Social policies such as providing 30 hours of free childcare to parents of 3 and 4-year-olds and the introduction of working tax credits to help with additional childcare costs have provided greater opportunities for employment, particularly for women. As a result, males have become more involved, although still less so than females, in dropping off and picking up children from childcare settings and breakfast clubs and after-school clubs. A further policy that encouraged male involvement in parenting was Sure Start, and that offered males opportunities to attend groups with other men and their children, challenging the notion that childcare was part of the feminine domain. The most notable impact of social policy on gender roles, however, is the promotion of women working, with policies such as the Equal Pay Act and Sex Discrimination Act. This has impacted on gender roles as women have gained greater financial independence through employment, and this has impacted on their input into financial decision making within the family. It also has other impacts, such as greater equality in domestic labour and childcare, as previously discussed. A further policy that impacted on gender roles in the family was the introduction of the Equality Act in 2010, making it illegal to discriminate on the grounds of gender, maternity or family, which allowed women to aspire to higher levels of employment. The knock-on effect of this is the increase in dual-earner families, and in many cases where women's financial power is greater than that of their partner, influencing decision-making in the family. That concludes this Tutor to You Sociology topic video on state policy and the family, examining the impacts of state policy on gender roles and relationships. Thanks for watching.